This past weekend, the Gdansk Pokemon GO Regional Championships were held. The regional championships are often defined by a particular Pokemon, whether it's Fearow rising out of nowhere to shock the masses, or a Pokemon like Shadow Giratina with Inadequance perfectly piloting it to victory. Oftentimes, it's the Pokemon that steal the show. But the story of Gdansk is not a story of Pokemon, but rather of friendship. This is Boom20 and PvP David, two friends who ended up building a team together for the Gdansk tournament. They ran the exact same team. Throughout the weekend, they dominated the competition, and it felt like it was destiny that their paths would eventually cross in the finals. So today, I'm going to be showcasing their runs in the Gdansk Regional Championship up until the finals, where they meet and have one of the best regional championship finals I have ever seen. Our story begins with Boom20 in the winner's semifinals against Howie. Howie is running a triple Shadow team with Steelix, Shadow Dusknoir, and Talonflame, and rounding out the team with Furret, Azumarill, and Forretress. The battlers lock in for game number 1, and for Boom, it's going to be an Altaria lead into a Shadow Steelix. Now, thanks to Altaria having Flamethrower, this is actually a pretty nice matchup for the Altaria. The Steelix will be able to consistently apply neutral damage, but that's just not enough to overcome the crushing damage from Flamethrower. Steelix will strike first with a Psychic Fangs, debuffing the Altaria and beginning to ramp up the Thunderfang damage. No bait from the Altaria, no shield from the Steelix, but big damage. Quick switch from Boom into Stunfisk, and that's going to be immediately answered with Shadow Dusknoir. One important storyline of this tournament was the complete fall-off of Mudslappers. It really felt like for a while in the Pokemon GO Championship Series that teams began and ended by putting a Mudslapper on the team. However, in this tournament, players began to realize a Mudslapper is not a requirement. And the fact that a lot of trainers did not bring Mudslappers made Unova Stunfisk an extremely safe Pokemon. Stunfisk on the safe swap, able to grab a shield advantage. Dusknoir gonna look to take the knockout. Boom actually decides that he does want to try and get rid of the Dusknoir, so he'll stay in and go for the Mud Bomb. Howie now has to decide, is it worth double shielding in the mid game? Howie says yes. Dusknoir shields. In comes Altaria. Altaria hoping for a farm down, but Shadow Dusknoir just had a little bit too much health. So Dusknoir will get to the Shadow Punch. That's going to get Altaria into the red HP. Back in comes the Steelix. At an important point of the match, Boom decides he's not going to throw his Flamethrower, because he does not want to give farm to Howie, but rather he wants to send in Florges, because now Florges is going to get an energy head start. He's going to exit this matchup with a Fairy Wind of residual energy and at +1 attack, because he takes the knockout with Trailblaze to boost up his damage. Howie's final Pokemon is Forretress, a Pokemon that normally does extremely well into Florges, but with Florges already starting this matchup at +1 attack, suddenly the tables have turned. This Chilling Water is going to do dramatically more damage than it used to. The Chilling Water is going to connect, and now the Forretress will be debuffed. The Florges is losing quite a lot of HP. Rock Tomb coming out from Howie. Boom thinks about calling the Sand Tomb bait, but will put up the shield. Boom, even though he has been debuffed, this is where the energy advantage will be so crucial, because he should be able to outpace. Howie now has to predict, will Boom throw instantly? Will he overfarm? He needs the catch. He predicts Boom will overfarm, but he does not. Boom just fires off the Chilling Water, taking the knockout onto the Forretress. All that's left is going to be the Dusknoir, and Dusknoir is going to get Fairy Winded down, and that's a Game 1 win for Boom. In game number 2, Boom stays with the Altaria lead, and it pays off as he leads into Furret. This is a winning matchup for Altaria in all even shielding scenarios. Altaria just looking to overfarm quite a bit of energy, because if Altaria throws pretty immediately, that might give Howie an opportunity to switch out. But as we take a look at Howie's team, Howie is in a little bit of trouble against the Altaria. Altaria is a big problem for this entire team. Boom actually decides to play aggressive. He's going to be saving the Altaria, recognizing if Howie's staying in, he's weak in the back. So he aggressively pivots into the Florges, and Florges will now be answered with Steelix. Steelix going to be taking big super effective damage from Chilling Water, and Chilling Water's guaranteed debuffs are going to make life very annoying for the Steelix. Steelix really loves to be able to ramp up its Thunder Fang damage with Psychic Fangs, but the moment it's able to get its attack up, Florges can put it right back down with the Chilling Water. This Chilling Water will not be enough to knock out the Steelix, but it will be getting the Steelix very, very low. So Boom's Chilling Water is going to connect. There's the switch to Altaria. Altaria looking for the farm down, but it does not get it. The shake of the head from Boom as Steelix gets damage registration error to make a Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs will apply a debuff. He's switch locked as well. Back in comes the Furret, but Furret is so far behind on energy. Boom saving that Altaria energy from earlier is about to pay off. Sky Attack is going to land, getting the Furret low. There's going to be the switch to Fortress, and even a Sky Attack will threaten some pretty significant damage. Howie puts up the shield, but in doing so, this should just about burn his switch clock, and there is the reveal. The final Pokemon in the back is Furret. Furret has a very bad matchup into Fortress, but with the way Boom has played this game, he has a 2-0 shield advantage. Howie is just going to go for debuffs, trying to ramp up his Bug Bite damage as much as possible. But the fact that he's not going for Rock Tombs means that Furret's already low amount of damage does not get any lower. And considering there's no shields to hide behind, it will start to add up over time. Howie will just go for the Sand Tomb. He did not build up. Boom's going to be no shielding. There is the Swift as out comes Furret. But Boom saves his shield for this moment. Howie grimaces. He knows he's in trouble as his Furret is just getting fully farmed down. Back in comes the Fortress. It's going to be taking, unfortunately, just too much damage from this Swift. Swift is going to land, getting the Fortress low. Furret makes yet another Swift, and Boom, he is currently undefeated in this tournament. He moves to 10-0, and he's on to the winners finals. In the other winners semifinals, PvP David with the exact same team versus Palasha. Both PvP David and Palasha are former regional champions, so this is an incredible matchup. We know David's team, but Palasha's team features Stunfisk, Fortress, Shadow Gyarados, Furret, Credilli, and Florges. The battlers lock in for game number 1, and it's Florges into Fortress. This is a bit of an uncomfortable matchup, as Fortress, even though it is going to have its Bug Bites resisted, Fortress does substantial damage with Bug Bite in this matchup. Bug Bite actually does 2 damage per Bug Bite and is very, very noticeable, as the Florges actually takes quite a lot of resisted damage. Whereas for the Florges, unfortunately, it can't do a lot of damage with Fairy Wind. It does have a pacing advantage, but Rock Tomb will deal some pretty significant damage. So Florges will fire off this Chilling Water. Because it's debuffed, 2 more Chilling Waters will now not be enough to take the knockout. The Fortress has artificially inflated its bulk enough to be able to withstand the damage. Florges and Fortress both looking to overfarm. Florges just looking to try and get this Fortress as low as possible. So Fortress now deep into the red. Fortress gonna go for the Rock Tomb. A Sand Tomb wouldn't quite be enough to take the knockout. So Fortress will control switch advantage for this game. And now David has to decide, does he go for the Bullet Punch or the Sucker Punch? He takes the Sucker Punch head start on Furret, and now a bit of a tricky moment in the match for Palasha. Palasha is going to bring in the Furret because Furret does a great job at absorbing energy from an opposing Furret. The problem is, you don't want to be in a mirror match down energy, as that way you're just going to straight up lose, and that's what made that a bit of an uncomfortable decision to make for Palasha, as Shadow Gyarados doesn't want to take Swifts, so the logical option is Furret, but it's also not a great option to be down energy in the mirror. So Palasha is forced to play out this matchup, but unfortunately she's always going to get outpaced. The Swift is going to land, and now a quick switch into Shadow Scizor. Scizor catching the Swift, but this is actually quite nice for Palasha, as Palasha now gets to send in the Shadow Gyarados. Shadow Gyarados loves the fact that the Scizor has already taken damage. David knows he cannot make it to 3 moves, so his only win condition in this game is to Trailblaze and try and ramp up the Bullet Punch damage. Bullet Punches are resisted, but this is a Shadow Gyarados. Shadow Gyarados is incredibly frail. The Aqua Tail comes out from the Gyarados, forcing the shield from the Scizor, and these Bullet Punches, oh my goodness, they do so much damage, but it's the Gyarados that farms down. Back in comes the Furret. Will this next Sucker Punch knock out? If it does, David's going to win. Palasha has to hope she can survive the Sucker Punch, and she does survive the Sucker Punch. Shadow Gyarados on 1 HP, hangs on, takes the knockout with the Aqua Tail, and that's going to be a Game 1 win for Palasha. This is a best-of-3 series, meaning David's going to have to win back-to-back games if he wants to advance to winners finals, but that's a pretty good start, leading Florges into Furret. This is a very nice matchup for the Florges, as Florges does have a resistance to Sucker Punch, the exact same pacing, and it wins charge attack priority. Furret is a very bulky Pokemon, so David is actually going to go for the Trailblaze first. Chilling Water is able to reduce Furret's damage, but he needs to boost up his own damage if he eventually wants to take the knockout. It looks like a Trailblaze, even a +1, would barely miss the knockout here, so David is just going to shield and farm it into a range where he can take a knockout and exit this matchup being heavily boosted. So he will do just that. Now he's going to exit this matchup at +2 attack. And this is quite scary for Palasha, as Palasha won't really want to send in a Gyarados or a Forretress. Out comes the Forretress, but Forretress is going to take massive damage. So here's the +2 Chilling Water. That is big damage onto that Forretress. Forretress going to try to farm down, but it cannot get there. Another Chilling Water. The moment David sees the no-shield, he should know it's Gyarados in the back. Chilling Water. There's the simultaneous switch. Shadow Scizor into Shadow Gyarados. That's an unbelievably good read from David. The moment David saw the no-shield, he knew Palasha's plan was the 2-shield Shadow Gyarados. He needed to get Scizor on the field as fast as possible and do what he did in game number 1. Trailblaze, ramp up the bullet punches, and just get this Shadow Scizor to do as much damage as it possibly can to Shadow Gyarados. Even with David making that perfect read, he could still be in trouble if Gyarados can make an Aqua Tail. It's going to be very close. David waits down the timer, and out comes Furret. He needs the Sucker Punches to take the knockout, but no, the Shadow Gyarados keeps living on 1 HP, and now Palasha is back in the driver's seat. She's going to be switching into the Fortress, needing the Rock Tomb to take the win, but there's the catch. David getting a game-winning catch onto the Florges. The Rock Tomb is undercharged. It still KOs. In comes Furret, and Furret's gonna Sucker Punch everything down. Back-to-back 1 HP survives from the Gyarados, but the catch from David means we're going to a game number 3. And the lead is a dominant one for Palasha, leading Credilli into Florges. Aggressive pivot by David, sending in his only counter, which is the Shadow Scizor. David is running an ABA line, which means both Florges and the Stunfisk have very negative matchups into that Credilli. But the way you play ABA lines, the thinking on that has evolved quite a bit as the years go by in competitive Pokemon Go PvP. The way David's playing it is the way that I think is honestly best. You switch in your only counter, and then eventually he's going to look to try and pivot back out to try and bait out the Credilli, because he's going to need Scizor to take care of that Credilli. In comes the Gyarados. Gyarados going to be immediately chipped by some pretty substantial damage here with the Night Slash. The Night Slash is going to land, and there it is. He sends in the Florges because he has to bait back out that Credilli, because Credilli would absolutely destroy the Stunfisk in the back. So now David, despite the fact that he was ABA weak, he's now set himself up to be in a position to win this game. David's already debuffed the Credilli, which means Rock Tomb is suddenly not particularly threatening. The Rock Tomb is going to land, and David, now that he's applied the debuff earlier on, he's just looking for damage. He goes for the Trailblaze. Trailblaze will do more damage overall and ramp up the Fairy Winds. Can Credilli get a farm down? The answer is no. Florges is going to make it to the Chilling Water, and Palasha will put up the shield. Is David's clock up? Can he send in the Scizor to try and snipe? He does not. In comes the Gyarados, and now the reveal. It's Stunfisk in the back, and Palasha realizes that she has been tricked. David never revealed the Stunfisk. Instead, baiting back out the Credilli, she saved the Gyarados, and now Shadow Scizor, saved from earlier, is bringing David to the winners finals. What an unbelievably well-played game by David. He had an extreme team comp disadvantage in this game number 3, but it did not matter. So now the stage is set for the winners finals. This will be best of 5. The winner moves on to the grand finals. Will it be PvP David, who just outplayed Palasha in back-to-back games? Or will it be Boom 20, a trainer who has not lost a game this entire tournament? 2 friends, mirror teams, a spot to grand finals on the line. Let's do this. The battlers lock in. It's going to be Furret for PvP David into the Corviknight for Boom. This is an incredibly favorable lead. Corviknight is a complete wall to energy from this Furret. Furret is going to look to bank up a ton of energy, and David safe switches into Altaria. This is actually a problem for Boom. Boom has run a line that is extremely soft to the Altaria, so he does not have an answer. David, playing it the way that he has by banking the energy on the Furret before sending in the Altaria, has actually put Boom in an extremely difficult position, because Boom is now in a spot where he cannot make a play for switch advantage without going down a shield. Boom is going to be winning charge attack priority. Altaria more than happy to no shield, as Altaria will be able to generate either shield advantage or switch advantage out of this mid game. Boom is going to be no shielding, but this means that Furret for David is about to be a huge problem. In comes Stunfisk for Boom. Boom is going to look for an incredibly aggressive farmed out Altaria. Does not get the Sky Attack, and that is a huge energy head start. In comes the Furret, but it's going to be Boom with an unbelievable catch. He overfarmed by 2, catches the Trailblaze onto the Corviknight. What a play. David stays in to try and bank energy, but this will allow Boom to desync the timers with Payback. Payback is going to land, getting Furret very low. Furret rebanks the Trailblaze, and there's the reveal. The final Pokemon is Unova Stunfisk. Stunfisk will take some pretty solid damage from the Payback. David decides it's not worth it, and the Payback will connect. Stunfisk will be able to overfarm quite significantly in this matchup. Stunfisk will go for the discharge. Corviknight is going to be putting up the shield. Corviknight going to look to try and race to a Payback. David overfarms. He does not want this discharge to be caught, and that allows Boom to fire off the Payback. Now, this Stunfisk is in Mud Bomb range. Does Boom combo play? David predicts the combo play. He throws the Mud Bomb, anticipating the switch in from Boom, but Boom stays on the field. The Mud Bomb lands onto its unintended target of Corviknight, and now in comes Stunfisk. Stunfisk's Mud Bomb no shielded by David. That's going to be getting David extremely low. The Mud Bomb is reached, and Boom will no shield. He knows that the Furret banked the Trailblaze, and that will do more damage. In comes Furret. It's going to be a race. Furret needs to get the 2 charge attacks before the Stunfisk, but it simply does not have the energy. Boom is going to emerge victorious in this game number 1. He had such a dominant lead, but the game swung out of his control when David banked the energy and safe swapped Altaria. But with a Trailblaze catch, with not sniping when David thought he was going to snipe, Boom fights his way back, and he takes the 1-0 lead in this series. What an unbelievably good game. The battlers lock in for game number 2. It's going to be Furret versus Furret. Only fitting that in a true mirror match, we have exact mirror leads. But the backlines are very different. For Boom, Boom has Shadow Scizor and Altaria. For David, he has Unova Stunfisk and Florges. David builds up to the Trailblaze and will go for the Swift. But Boom is just going to look to go for the Trailblaze. He's looking to try and ramp up his damage. Trailblazing does mean that he is going to get outpaced, but a second Swift from the Furret will barely miss the knockout. And Boom knows it. Immediate no shield. He's confident that he can survive this and one more Sucker Punch. It's going to be very close, but he knows his matchups perfectly. He survives, and now he can win the Zero Protect Shield scenario. David's going to no shield. He loses Switch. In comes Stunfisk, and Stunfisk is going to be answered with the Altaria. There's the switch into Florges, answered with the Shadow Scizor, as Scizor is off to the races. Scizor, these bullet punches are shredding the Florges, and Scizor should be able to fully farm down and sweep this game. Chilling Water lands. Scizor does not get the farm down. A rare miscount from Boom. He thought Florges got one more Fairy Wind than it did on the switch in, and that could potentially cost him. Back in comes the Stunfisk, but now Stunfisk, instead of having to shield twice, is only going to have to shield once. Boom knows he can't make 2 Night Slashes. He can only make the Trailblaze, so he boosts up his bullet punches as much as he can, but he's getting farmed down. Back in comes the Altaria. Altaria still has 2 Protect Shields and a full health bar, but this matchup, this endgame, is where the Dragon Breath rework will actually betray Altaria. And that's because Altaria, it doesn't really do a lot of Dragon Breath damage in this matchup. Flamethrower allows it to hit for neutral damage, but Flamethrower doesn't even do 30%. Boom will go for a Sky Attack bait. He knows he needs to try and generate any kind of advantage that he possibly can. David does put up the shield, but David's Stunfisk is still so healthy. It would basically have to be right around red HP for a Flamethrower to knock out. So Discharge is going to land. David continues to farm. David gets the back-to-back discharges, and Boom is not even throwing the Flamethrower because he knows it will not knock out from this health range. Discharge is going to land. There's Discharge number 2, and David, with the energy management on the Stunfisk, claws his way back, knocks out Altaria, and is going to get the equalizer in game number 2. For game number 3, it's a great lead for Boom as he leads Furret into Stunfisk. This is an uncomfortable spot to be in as David, because David doesn't particularly want to switch in his own Furret, because then he would always be behind by a Sucker Punch. So instead, he's just going to stay in with the Stunfisk and look to try and play this matchup out for a little bit. Trailblaze coming out from the Furret, immediate no shield from the Stunfisk. Stunfisk takes super effective damage here, but this is where the bulk of the Stunfisk can be very, very helpful. So Stunfisk will now go for the Mud Bomb. Furret again with the no shield, but Stunfisk is actually doing some pretty solid damage, as Furret is now approaching the red HP. Furret is going to farm up, go for the charge attack priority tie. Swift will be able to take the knockout. So the Furret does exit boosted and with some residual energy, but honestly for a losing lead, that was not terrible. In comes Altaria. Altaria going to be immediately chipped with the Swift. Does Boom look to pivot? The Swift is going to land. There is the pivot. Out comes Shadow Scizor. Shadow Scizor going to get outpaced. Altaria makes the Sky Attack. Even a neutral Sky Attack is absolutely worth shielding as the Shadow Scizor. Now is it David's turn to switch, and it is. Out comes Furret. Furret farming up energy, trying to get to the Swift, but before it can, Scizor gets to unleash its massive amount of energy. There's going to be a Night Slash, getting a shield, no boost comes through, and there's Night Slash number 2. David with the double shield. Can David get a farm down? If he can get the farm down, that would be a big swing. It's going to be very close. It might be exact HP, and David decides that he cannot, and he will fire off the Swift. It would have been exceedingly close. It would have been exact HP if the Sucker Punch knocked out, or if it was a 1 HP survive. David does not want to risk it because he had no shields to hide behind for the Furret, so he will now get to go for the back-to-back Swifts into the Altaria. Altaria is taking quite a bit of damage, but for Boom, he's still fine, because even though these Swifts do add up, this is an Altaria. It's very, very bulky. Altaria is going to take the knockout, not letting the Furret get to a third Swift. Only 1 turn away. Sky Attack takes the knockout. David brings in his Altaria. Can he get the farm down? He cannot. It was the lack of Dragon Breath damage that doomed Boom in game number 2, and it dooms David in game number 3, and Boom is 1 win away from Grand Finals. Boom locks in Furret lead into a Corviknight. The inverse leads to game number 1. David, of course, going to look to stay in this matchup. Can Boom potentially look to save energy and pivot out? He does. In comes Stunfisk, out comes the Furret, but that was a pretty quick switch out from David. Being able to switch into the Furret pretty quickly into a Stunfisk safe switch is very, very important, because you don't want to let them get to a second Mud Bomb before you can get your Trailblaze up, because once you have your Trailblaze up, then you can just spam out Swifts, and Swift does a pretty good job of keeping pace with the Stunfisk. So Stunfisk is going to farm up just shy of the back-to-back Mud Bombs, but David now has the Swift, and it's a boosted Swift at that, which means it will be enough to take the knockout. So he will attempt to go for charge attack priority. Boom will put up the shield, but Boom now realizes he doesn't have enough of an advantage. In the back, he is going to have his own Corviknight, but he's going to have a really tough time of it because David has the Altaria. He throws the discharge in case of a catch onto a flying type, and now he will go for a catch onto Corviknight. He's trying to save charge attacks, desync timers, try and generate any kind of advantage, but unfortunately Corviknight is about to get absolutely shredded as Altaria hits the field. Altaria, with its flamethrower, just has such a dominant matchup into Corviknight. Corviknight's Sand Attack provides amazing coverage, allowing it to beat Pokemon like Bastiodon, but against other flying types, it really struggles. Boom has so much energy. He's going for an Air Cutter bait, hoping to get a shield and maybe get a boost at that. The Air Cutter lands, no boost, and there's no second charge attack as well. He could not make it to the payback. Out comes Furret, but at this point, the writing's on the wall in this one. There is no way for Boom to win. David knows it, Boom knows it, and that's why Boom is not throwing any of his charge attacks. Boom knows that even if he throws all his charge attacks, there's no way for him to get through the Corviknight because there's still a full health Corviknight in the back. So he is just going to be no shielding everything and not throwing his charge attacks just to not waste any of David's time. David gets the equalizer, and this series, as it should, is going to a decisive Game 5. And what's more fitting in a decisive game number 5 between two mirror match teams than a perfect mirror match? Altaria leads with Furret and Stunfisk in the back. It's going to be David striking first in this game number 5 with a Sky Attack. Sky Attack will land, and now Boom will immediately return fire with a Sky Attack of his own. David is going to be no shielding, so both Altarias take the Sky Attacks, and there's a simultaneous save switch. Furret into Furret. Boom shaking his head. At this point, these trainers may know that they are playing exact mirrors. He is going to go for the Trailblaze winning charge attack priority, and David will put up an early shield. Boom decides not to shield, and now we have our first example of a play that is different between the two trainers in this mirror match. Boom is going to look to make it to the Swift, but it's David winning charge attack priority. You've got to be kidding me. In this mirror match, David and Boom have the exact same attack stat on their Furret. That means the charge attack priority tie in the mirror is entirely random. It is a true coin flip. In comes Altaria, Boom racing to the charge attack. Boom gets to the Sky Attack, but he loses charge attack priority, and that is a massive swing for David. David will be able to force the shield away from that Altaria before his Furret gets knocked out. That is incredibly good for David. All shields down, Furret gets KO'd. In comes Altaria, he gets it low, and he snipes with Stunfisk. What an amazing play by David. David's realizing this could be the mirror, and if it is, he wants to be up energy in the Stunfisk mirror, not down energy in the Stunfisk mirror. So he banks energy on Altaria, and now being up energy in the mirror means that he'll always be able to win unless Boom gets a catch. We've seen some devastating catches in Gdansk already. Will we see one more? David going to take a second Mud Bomb. He is very close to the back-to-back. The switch clock for Boom is available. He can make a catch at any moment. David throws immediately, and no catch comes through. Will David throw right away? Will he overfarm? Will he wait the turn? David farms up. He waits the turn. Boom gets caught mid-Thundershock, and that's going to be a 3-2 win for David. He takes the knockout. In comes Furret, greeted with a Sky Attack by the Altaria, and PvP David. Oh my goodness, sensational plays in the winners finals, and he's moving on to grands. The losers finals was Boom 20 versus Colin 6, the final boss, and Boom won to get a rematch against David. The leads are set for game number 1 in this grand finals, and it's going to be Furret into Shadow Scizor. Now, the grand finals is a bit different to the winners finals. Since David comes out of the winner's side of the bracket, he only has to win 1 best of 5 to be crowned champion, whereas Boom would need to win 2 best of 5s, this first matchup, and then a second bracket reset. But for now, let's get back into the action as Scizor survives on 1 HP to win switch advantage for David. In the back, Boom is going to have Shadow Scizor, and he's going to have Stunfisk. He's going to take the energy head start on Scizor, but he's going to be answered with Stunfisk, and this is not where he wants to be. He's going to bring in his own Stunfisk, and David is going to wisely bank a ton of energy on Stunfisk and send out Altaria. We know that Altaria can struggle if it's down energy against Stunfisk, but what David has done is going to set himself up to win this game, and that is that he realizes that he can just use Altaria's natural bulk as a damage sponge and an opportunity to get a huge amount of energy on his own Stunfisk, because all the energy that he has stored should easily be enough to deliver victory for him. He now gets to go for a flamethrower into the Stunfisk, and that's not going to do much, but honestly, it does not have to. Boom is going to get aggressive. He's switching into the Scizor and will fire off the Night Slash. This does desync the switch timers. David puts up the shield because he knows that he needs to try and start peeling away shields from Boom. So Boom will put up the shield, but now David will have the ability to switch, and just like that, all the stored energy on the Stunfisk is going to be a problem. Stunfisk's Mud Bomb is going to be no shielded because Boom knows he has the back-to-back, so a shield wouldn't accomplish anything. The Night Slash is reached. That's going to be shielded up by David, and David is going to get a full farm down. Boom would love to switch out, but the switch clock does not come up, and this is just an energy advantage for David that Boom cannot come back from. The back-to-back mud bombs are loaded. Boom is going to shield the first, but there is the second. David Stunfisk is going to be winning charge attack priority, and this mud bomb is just going to get the Stunfisk too low. Stunfisk is now deep into the red health. David, no shields remaining, but he does not need them to win this game because he can send in the Altaria. Altaria will be able to snipe down with a few Dragon Breaths, and that's going to be a game 1 win for David. David only needs 2 more wins to be crowned regional champion, and we have a perfect mirror match lead, leading Furret into Furret. The backlines is where we do see a bit of difference. While both trainers do have Stunfisk, David has brought Altaria as his final Pokemon, whereas Boom has brought the Florges. David likes to go for Swifts in the mirror match, whereas Boom prefers to go for Trailblaze into Swift, and we've seen that work out for him. As the Trailblaze into Swift, he's barely able to make that second Swift on basically 1 HP remaining and win the switch advantage. If David goes for the energy head start on the Stunfisk, which he has done, Boom having Florges means that he actually has a pretty okay answer to the Stunfisk that he can bring in. Stunfisk being up energy does mean that it can threaten a potential Mud Bomb landing before a debuff gets applied, but it's still better than having to send a Stunfisk into a mirror down energy. So out comes the Florges. Florges, immediate no shield. This means a full damage Mud Bomb will be connecting. Mud Bomb is a pretty solid move, so the damage will add up on the Florges. Florges now going to go for the Trailblaze, just looking to ramp up its damage. Stunfisk is an extremely bulky Pokemon, so being able to ramp up the damage should hopefully help Boom be able to win this matchup in the long run. Immediate shield comes up from Boom, as Boom knows that now he has to start applying these debuffs. Getting the debuffs applied is very, very important because his Florges is suddenly not looking particularly healthy. Stunfisk up energy is putting up a vicious fight, and Stunfisk, even at -1, should just about knock out with the Mud Bomb. That's going to force the final shield from Boom. Boom will get to overfarm once again and then go for the Chilling Water. This is going to be a charge attack priority tie. Now the question is, when all shields are down, who's going to win the 0 shield in the end game? Is it going to be the Altaria for David or the Stunfisk for Boom? Well, is this Mud Bomb going to knock out first? The Mud Bomb is going to land. Florges very low. Florges hangs on and gets to a Chilling Water. This Chilling Water will be able to pick up the knockout, and then it's going to be the 0 shield end game. In comes Stunfisk, answered with Altaria, and we've got a game. Stunfisk has a very large pacing advantage in this matchup, but Discharge is an incredibly bad move. So Discharge is not going to do much, whereas Altaria, it's not going to get to as many charge attacks, but Flamethrower will add some pretty respectable damage. So Altaria will go for the Flamethrower. Flamethrower is going to land. Stunfisk just outside of the yellow HP, but the Dragon Breath after will take it below half. That means this is going to be very close. Can Stunfisk hang on for Boom, or will it be the Altaria getting David 1 win away from a regional championship? It's going to come right down to the wire. Stunfisk is pretty close to KO range for this Flamethrower. Flamethrower lands. Stunfisk hangs on. Stunfisk goes for the Discharge. Can Altaria hang on? It's going to be very, very close. Discharge into the Altaria is going to land. Altaria survives. Altaria gets farmed down, and Boom gets the equalizer. This game number 3 could be massive, as whoever wins it will be only 1 win away from either winning if you're David or forcing a second best of 5 if you're Boom. And it's going to be Stunfisk into Altaria once again. I do really like this matchup because it is a very neutral matchup. It isn't exceedingly one-sided or anything like that. There's quite a bit of play on both sides. Altaria is going to bank energy, and there's a Furret save switch from Boom. There's no Corviknight in the back to wall off this energy for David, so David is instead going to bring out his other flying type, which is Altaria. We've seen time and time again Altaria able to gain an advantage against Furret. Boom, no shields. He thinks he can survive. Is he correct? Sky Attack lands, and he is. The matchup knowledge for Boom paying off, as not having to give up a shield to get to these back-to-back Swifts is extremely helpful. Now, if Boom wants to, he can surrender the farm down, or he can look to get aggressive and pivot out. And Boom, he's going to get aggressive. In comes Shadow Scizor. Shadow Scizor looking for the full farm down here, but Altaria hangs on, very low HP, so Boom gets a big energy head start, but he is forced to burn a shield. That survive is a massive swing for David, who now gets to bring out the Stunfisk. Stunfisk is down energy, but being up a shield gives David a lot of wiggle room in this matchup. There's a ton of energy on the Altaria for Boom, but Furret does a pretty good job at neutralizing that energy. So Stunfisk will get to force the final shield off of the Scizor. The thing to watch for will be the switch timer. Boom will have an ability to catch. Will David fall for it, or will he be able to hold on to his energy? The Night Slash bait will once again get the shield. Scizor farms up. There's the catch attempt onto Altaria, but the Altaria will now get answered with the Furret. Furret, more than happy to absorb energy from the Altaria, and the important thing for David was he held onto his energy, and an energy advantage on the Stunfisk is exactly what David's going to need to win this game. David will fire off another Swift. Sky Attack number 1 landed for Boom, but Boom is not going to throw just yet. He's going to maximize his energy, farming up to the back-to-back Sky Attacks. The important thing for Stunfisk, it is not in range of getting knocked out by a Flamethrower, but rather, the only thing he has to worry about is the energy from Scizor. So in comes the Stunfisk, gonna go for the Flamethrower. When does Boom go for the Snipe? He's one off the move. David has to watch for it. There's gonna be the switch into the Scizor. Scizor gets the move and wins charge attack priority. Boom threw one Dragon Breath, switched, which takes a turn, and then threw that Bullet Punch, timing it perfectly so he would win that charge attack priority tie, and now he's one win away from resetting the bracket. David, in this game 4, he needs an equalizer if he wants the best of 5 to continue, and that's a good start. Altaria into Furret. We know Altaria has a great matchup in the back for David. He has his own Furret and Scizor, and oh my goodness, does he want switch advantage, because Boom is going to have Florges, which would get absolutely crushed by Scizor, and Stunfisk, which does not want to see the Furret. Furret gonna look to overfarm quite a bit. David gonna connect with the Sky Attack. Immediate no shield from Boom. Furret now deep into the red, and there's gonna be a safe switch into the Stunfisk, and that's gonna be swiftly answered with the Furret. David again with a pretty quick response. If you're slow on the switch, Stunfisk can actually make life very uncomfortable for the Furret, but David has switched fast enough so he can guarantee that he gets the Trailblaze before the second Mud Bomb. The reaction time from David is absolutely critical in this mid-game matchup, as now he's going to ensure that he's not going to be behind. Boom is going to farm up just shy of the back-to-back Mud Bombs, but David is more than happy to let this go. He now has the Swift, and he can even overfarm by 1 to go for the CMP tie. He does just that, but Boom not going to fall for it. Boom is going to take the free Thunder Shock, but Boom knows that he cannot generate an advantage in this matchup because of how quickly David switched. So instead, he's bringing in the Florges. Florges going to be shielding up, looking for a full farm down, but the issue is this Florges energy would be so good into just about anything else that David could have, but David has the Scizor, and that's going to be a big problem. In comes Shadow Scizor. Scizor immediately forced to put up the shield, as this Chilling Water would do quite a bit of damage, and now he will get to go for Chilling Water number 2. The Scizor double shielding, but now going to be double debuffed. Boom going to look to send in the Furret. Furret did store a bunch of energy from earlier, and there it is. Furret desperately needing a Swift, plus a bunch of Sucker Punches, plus a second Swift to take the knockout. Can Furret even get there, though these Bullet Punches are double debuffed, and Furret does get there. Will this Swift deliver a knockout? It's going to be very close. Can Scizor hang on? Scizor does hang on. There's the switch to Altaria. Scizor has a Trailblaze, Altaria has a Sky Attack, there's no way out for Florges. Sky Attack lands, Altaria Dragon Breaths down a Fairy type, and it's only fitting that we go to another Game 5. The first best of 5 in the winners finals went to a Game 5. The second best of 5 in the grand finals goes to a Game 5 as well. And if Boom wins this Game 5, we'll get a third best of 5. But if David wins, it's over and he's champion. These two friends built this team together. This team beat every other team in the tournament. It's only lost to itself. And now they lock in game number 5, Boom versus PvP David. It's Shadow Scizor for Boom into the Altaria for PvP David. Scizor has a pretty dominant win in the 2 shield. Altaria wins the 0s and the 1s, but David opts out. He's going to be safe switching into Furret. The Scizor will fire off the Night Slash. Furret puts up the shield, and now Boom will elect to send out Florges. So Boom could have potentially looked to gone for the mirror, but instead going to send out the Florges. Florges does have a Sucker Punch resistance, which is very valuable in this matchup. Florges going to look to no shield and overfarm quite a bit. Florges cannot knock out with a Trailblaze or a Chilling Water, so Florges will need to throw both charge attacks if it is looking to secure the KO. So Florges will go for the Trailblaze. Trailblaze is going to land. Furret hangs on. And Florges is going to play to the charge attack priority tie. This leaves Florges very, very low. It could set up a Thundershock down for the Stunfisk if David wants to reveal that Mon. There's the Stunfisk, and boom, gets aggressive. He aggressively pivots into the Shadow Scizor. Scizor is obviously going to be down energy, but he is up a shield, which is very important. He is also down quite a lot of health. The switch timer is available for David, so this could come down to David needing a catch, and boom, needing to avoid the catch. Boom, Trailblaze lands on its intended target, so that forces David to burn a shield. All shields are down for David. It's going to be very, very close. The final shield goes up for Scizor, and the game comes down to this. Boom, goes for the Trailblaze, and David catches it onto the Altaria. Oh my goodness, what a play from David. He had an incredible catch against Palasha, and now he gets one when it matters most against Boom. Boom stays in because those double boosted bullet punches did a ton of damage, and now he sends out the Furret. Furret will take substantial damage from this Sky attack and look to overfarm and knock out the Altaria with the Swift. So Furret does now have quite a bit of residual energy as it makes it to the Swift. Swift into the Altaria will land. It does not knock out, and that forces Boom to go for a snipe onto the Florges. Florges, can it make the Chilling Water? It does not. It gets farmed down, and now it's David with the upper hand. David needs to get to the back-to-back Mud Bombs. The first will not knock out. Can Boom make it to the Trailblaze? Boom does not get there. And PvP David, he cannot believe it. One of the best winners finals and grand finals we've ever seen, both going to a decisive game number 5. It's PvP David claiming another regional championship with an absolutely brilliant performance. When the dust settled at the end of a long weekend of battling, it was PvP David who emerged victorious. David played lights out the entire weekend, making miraculous catches against two of the best trainers, Boom and Palasha, to emerge victorious. When the lights were brightest, when it mattered the most, it was David who made the winning plays. And as for this team and the meta shift we saw in Gdansk, we saw a rejection of Mudslappers and of Credilli. Of the top usage teams in day number 2, Marowak was nowhere to be found. Gastrodon was nowhere to be found. It was Pokemon like Clodsire and Unova Stunfisk, ground types that have better matchups into the Flyers, that actually rose to prominence. And a large falloff of Credilli allowed Pokemon like Florges to take center stage, and Furret also rose dramatically. It'll be very interesting to see. I believe we have a 1-week break before the Las Vegas Regional Championships. I'm very interested to see how does the meta adapt. North America so far, Bastiodon has won both events, but it's very unlikely to repeat. The world champion Beelzeboy also announced that he would be traveling to the United States to compete at Las Vegas as well. So will the meta trends from Gdansk carry over to North America, or will North America continue its alignment-heavy play? Thank you so much for watching. My name is Home Slice Henry, and you are watching More Slice Henry, my second channel where I cover content related to the Pokemon GO Championship Series, educational content, and in general just content that I want to make that I don't really feel fits on my main channel. If you enjoy longer, more in-depth content like this, please do leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, make sure you have notifications turned on as well, as I post once per week, but you definitely don't want to miss an upload. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.